G'day guys, we're back. Dirt and All, episode 13. We're here in Campsie. Woodsy and I here with Brett Comiskey, Comiskey Mining Services.
How are you? Good morning to you all.
Good morning, mate. Thank you for coming down.
Hey,
it's
awesome.
Been going back and forth for a while.
It has. It's taken us a while, and you've been on to me a few times, and so's the other lads. So I'm glad I'm here finally.
Well, you know, when you start contacting someone, you know there's a point that they've actually saved your number.
Yes.
There's a time, and I knew it. And it's when I was driving through Coffs. I rang you last time. You said, "G'day, mate," and I thought, I've got him. He's got my number saved.
Yeah.
But he had an excuse too. The 793 out the back to check out a couple of chassis there. So
I
made sense.
I come in early this morning with Timmy.
Yep.
And went for a walk down the back. So it's something that we'll probably pursue.
A few purchase orders.
Yeah. Work out the old bank man, and we'll go for it.
Yeah. So you guys have DGI. We've got a bit on at the moment. You guys got trucks coming and going.
Trucks come in, well, those 93s and 777Gs we've got coming in. So that's a bit of processing to do. So.
And DGI and Comiskey, you guys have had I've known the Comiskey name for years with me working with DGI. You guys have had not just a business relationship in the mining sector, but also the support of your race team as well.
Yes.
We got a lot of racing talk. We're definitely going to get to that a bit later. Where does your relationship with DGI span back to?
Mate, my early 20s with Griffo.
Yeah,
I first met Griffo in Emerald at an auction. We were bidding on a D11 Rippertine, and he just came up, introduced himself, and because he always weared his bloody tablecloth shirt that he used to wear, so he introduced himself, and he said, "Well, if you're going to get that, I'll back out of the sale," and I got it, and that's how I met Griffo. And ever since, the guys have been awesome to me. You know, always ring up and do a deal with them, and yes or no, straight off the bat. So, know Timmy really well. He's been out to Finke with us, the racing, and he's brought some of his customers out to watch as well.
He loves that.
He sort of instigated most of the sponsorship sort of stuff for the car, but as far as work goes, mate, yes, it's a big part of our business.
Yeah, and then for everyone listening at home, that's Tim Boyd. You may be familiar with Tim around the traps in the industry. So Brad is Tim's man here, so he's
our go-to point.
Yep.
And then if we're in trouble with accounts, the dude upstairs is on to me as well.
Yeah, Scott loves it.
Charlton.
Yes. Yeah.
So going back a step, what's your story? How did you get started? How did because your father had a business in the industry. Take us back to
school. Did you make year 10,
we
year
come
11?
from a mining town. First 10 years of my life grew up in Moorumba.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So full mine town. Used to go out and turn the drag lines off. So, walked amongst giants straight off the bat when I was little and got pretty well obsessed with it. I probably really didn't understand what my dad actually sort of did and probably appreciated what he did in the industry. So we were there till about 10, and then he was one of the main instigators to start the Gregory mine in Emerald.
Yep.
Designed all the pits, and then my mum was pretty keen to move to Emerald, closer to her mum. So the guys at BHP at that point, that was their first opening to coal, offered him a job. So then it was a quick move to Emerald. I think he got like 3 or 4 promotions in one day. So we pretty well moved up level.
Knew what he's doing.
Back then, if your position was had to do a lot with your house you had.
Yep.
So we moved a little bit in Emerald a few times. So, moved to Emerald. I went to school there in high school. Pretty well discovered motorbikes, so I lost interest in school. Dad didn't get on too well with the people out at the Gregory because they were all from iron ore type mining, hard rock. They had their own ideas.
Different application.
Application. And then at that point, trainer, operator type stuff started to come in the industry big time. So he wrote a lot of operator manuals for companies. He come home and he pulled the pin from BHP and went out on his own, bought a Land Cruiser ute, and off he went. So he did a fair stint, couple of years at German Creek, got that up and running. Then he went and did a couple of years at Curragh, got Curragh up and running with all the training. And then that sort of just started to peter out a bit, and then he ended up taking a full-time job at Middlemount, so then we had to move. So right in our teens, like leave our friends and all that, so that was a bit hard.
Like in the 80s?
Yeah, it was 84.
Yeah, yep.
So we
You're
had
not just
to move.
jumping on Instagram to keep in touch with what your friends are up to.
not back then.
Yeah,
so that was a
it would've
big
been
thing
tough,
for me
yeah.
and my sister at that age. It was right then when you're a teen,
Yep.
So we moved to Middlemount. He was a dragline foreman there, went into superintendent. And then the mine started a new junior program at the mine. So I got a job there as a junior in the QCU union. So I was more or less a broom sweeper in the workshop, but it was part of the drill and dragline maintenance section. So I got to work with draglines. So then everyone knew who my dad was. So I pretty well got a good lift up pretty quickly and got to do some cool jobs, on the draglines. I was always the first one to get dragged into doing the full shutdowns on them, working on the drills, doing rebuilds on the drills. We were there for about 2 years. Then they started a junior operator program, and at that time the unions were nice and strong. They wouldn't let me convert over to the FEDFA at that point in time to become an operator, and that's all I wanted to do, like my dad, be an operator. And at that point, they were giving him a bit of curry about operating machines on site, demarcation, you're doing my job type stuff.
Yeah.
So he come home one night and he said, "I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm going to go and buy a dozer and go into the bush."
Yep.
I'm like, "Well, what am I going to do?" He said, "Well, you either stay here or you come with me." And that was it.
Huh.
I went, "I'm not staying here. my future will be driving a dump truck."
Yep.
And that'll be or end up in the wash plant or something like that. So I wanted to be a dozer operator like my dad, and my only chance was to go with him. So we left Middlemount. We'd bought a house in Emerald. We moved back to Emerald. We went to Brisbane. We bought a D5B. We bought an old Cat 12 17K grader. We bought an old float, bought a caravan and a Land Cruiser, and off we went.
In the bush.
In the bush.
Yep.
Did a month straight off the bat.
Yep.
Like, when are we going home, Dad? When we're finished.
Yeah.
So back then, before the internet, were you guys just door knocking? How would you?
Word of mouth.
Just word of mouth.
I'd be on the dozer, and then he'd go, "Right, I'm going looking for work," and he'd be gone all day.
Yep.
I'd have no vehicle. You'd have your water bottle, your sandwich, and he'd come back at night and go, "Right, we're going next door, or we're going 20K down the road, or whatever," and that's how we did it.
Yep.
They didn't hang around their phones in their houses, the graziers, so he physically got in the car and went looking for work.
Find them, yeah.
Yeah. So, learnt the craft early on the piece, and I couldn't have learned off anyone better with his skill level. So, we did that for ages, moved up to a D7G and then got into the scrub pulling. Ended up getting some D8Ks out of America, out of cotton farms, got up into those sorts of dozers.
Did you? Yep.
And then he pretty well deserted me. He got back into the mines. One of his good friends was down here at Vickery, and they were transitioning from underground to open cut. So he had to train underground people to operate drag lines and machines. So he pretty well disappeared for 4 or 5 years, and then I virtually took over running the business, the family business. Some people weren't happy with that, like kept asking, "Where's your father? Where's your father? Are you capable of doing this?" And after a while, they stopped mentioning my dad, and it was about me. So I pretty well took over running the show for quite a while, years. I'm probably talking 10 years. We started getting up in dozer size, and we ended up buying a D9N off the guys at Hastings.
Yep, high track.
Yeah, got into our first high tracks. Went and did some land development work with it because we got into the blade plows then, which were the big thing in the industry. So we started towing them around the place. Had a couple of guys working for me.
More rural type of work.
All rural work. Yeah, stick raking, fence clearing, building dams.
Roads.
Yeah, roads, everything. So we did everything. So I spent about 14 years straight operating a dozer.
Yep.
We ended up getting a brand new D8N when they first come out, the high tracks. And I honestly could say I put the first 8,000 hours on that machine.
Shit. Hey.
It was. I remember driving it off the float. I was that keen. I ended up staying out there till like 10 o'clock at night. I wasn't going to let anyone else on this thing. I went home. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't wait to get back the next day. How good is this thing? You know, they'd come such a long way.
Oh,
and me being obsessed with bulldozers, this is the bee's knees, and you could see that the work you could do with them was incredible. So I got introduced to high tracks pretty early on in the piece. We ended up having a 7H as well, a little bit light for what we were doing. We got rid of it. And then we got a 9N. Then we got asked by German Creek, where we were from, to hire it to them over the Christmas period to do some work on their dozers. And we took it there for a 3-week period, and 3 years later I left.
Yeah, wow.
And that's how I got into the dry hire business.
Yep.
And back then it had 2 lights on the roof and it had a e-stop. That was mine pack.
That's mine pack, yeah.
That was mine pack. So, and that was it. Away I went, dry hire. And within 3 months, I accumulated 15 dozers.
Yeah, right.
I was pretty well living out of a suitcase. I had 2 Ray Faber toolboxes in the back of my car.
Yep.
I had workshop manuals on the seat in the front of the car. I had a little jiffy bag for clothes, and off I'd go.
Had you considered prior to that opportunity that this is where you wanted to take the business, or was it just born from
naturally,
opportunity to go into hire?
This is the go into mining too? Is this what actually...
At that stage, we'd been through a couple of droughts in the industry. I ended up having to go and work for someone else. Lucky then I only had 1 car payment. I was living at home, so there was no housing cost. I was getting paid $200 a week by a friend of mine in Emerald to go and work on cotton farms, building all the windrows and, fixing up drains and shit. But you did whatever to survive. So I did that for a while, and, we end up getting into a variety of things. We end up hiring the D8 to a dude building ring tanks on cotton farms. So we did whatever. We got our payments stopped on some of the machines we had just because we had no work.
Yeah.
So then we had the opportunity to get into the mining side of things. At that point, that was when dry hire was just starting to sort of take off.
Yep.
And that's what I mean. In 3 months, I accumulated 15 machines.
And this is all for the mining industry then,
all for the mines. Yeah, it went nuts.
Big change, isn't it?
I would go into an office and they'd go, "Have you got a D10?" And I'd just go, "Yes." I'd run out of that office, get on an aeroplane straight down to Brisbane. I went to Perth and bought one. I was coming down here, West Track. So
what were lead times like back then from saying yes to that machine being mobilised on site?
Because there wasn't all the jargon what they do now with all the mine specking and all that, man, you could get a machine to them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, within 2 or 3 weeks, you had a machine on site.
Yep.
So
that was always manageable, that timeline? Or was
it
was
was only me. It was only me running the business, and a couple of my friends were diesel fitters in Emerald. So they were helping me out with site repairs, and you could get on site pretty easily back then.
Yeah.
You didn't have all the crap these days.
Yeah.
So it just grew from there. Like, we just got bigger and bigger. Then Dad wanted to come home. He finished his last gig down here in New South Wales. He went and did a job at Gillenbar, did some crane training, and then they told him that, hey, we're going to start another pit. By this time, we'd accumulated a fair bit of stuff outside that I was looking after. They gave us a tender document for Gillenbar Plains, and then we come up against some of the companies that we're actually working for now, and we actually won it. So we pulled everything out of every other site, and we went into Gillenbar in 2001. And pretty well then that's where I stayed for the next 11 years.
So you had to gear up and get trucks.
Yeah.
Because...
at that stage, straight to the bank, alone.
Yeah.
That's how I met Hitachi. We bought a brand new 2500.
Yep.
New 1800. Lucky enough, I knew the guys, Mike Forday. It's an old name out of Komatsu.
Yeah.
We bought some 785s off Mike. We knew a guy over in West Track in Perth, so we bought our first 994 wheel loader.
Oh, yeah, big one.
Bought some 85Bs out of West Track, and then away we went.
Yeah.
We bought a PC 1600, and then virtually the goalpost shifted every day in that place. We went there to do 1 million tonne of coal, and I think we're doing 1.6 million. We're doing 33 million metres of dirt by the end. We had 8 circuits running. This is when then we met Brendan, my business partner now.
Yep.
We bought like 8 excavators from him. The relationship with Hitachi grew and got strong, and we had a new 5600, we had 2 3600s, we had a 2 2500s, we had an 1800, we had about 38 trucks on site.
So did you guys have to run the pit and...
We did everything.
Yeah.
The only thing the mine did was to cut costs is we shared the drill and blast crew. So we did all the crushing, workshop, personnel. I used to pull in the mornings and get milk from the servo to put in the crib huts. So it was very much hands-on.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I own a business, now I can go home and sit at home.
Yeah.
It was, I was in the office. I had a bit of back issue at that point in time. I probably spent a month at home. I lifted something way bigger than I should have, and L4, L5 damaged them. So I pretty well much gave the operating side away and went into the workshop. So then I became workshop manager.
What year was this?
That was about 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did pretty well. And I'm very much hands-on mechanical as well. I didn't do a trade. It's what I've learned under a tree, more or less, and playing with motorbikes and everything else. What I don't know, I ask, or I bring some expert in to help me, which I was lucky enough to grow up with some good friends in the Emerald area, which came and worked for me. So I transitioned then into the workshop. And I think that was a good thing for me, learning logistics, paperwork.
Yeah.
I'd never even started a computer.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to start one. My friend that I employed, he was very annoying to me, and in the end I ended up having a run-in with him and said, you either teach it to me or shut up. So that's when I learned it. I did everything by book.
Yeah.
Written in a book.
Written in the book. But like running a 5600 to a D5B, it's a bit of a different thing.
It is, but doing the dry hire thing, working on various sites, did a lot up at Newlands with Thies. I think I was on like 15 different mine sites. So, and it was all, once the unions went out of it a bit, we were in there like, doing rebuilds on dozers because we had like 15 D10s at that stage. So I became a bit of an expert with D10s. So it was all hands on.
Everything sounds like it's moving so fast. From when you first went out with your old man into the scrub with that dozer and you stood in front of your first big digger or face shovel, was it a cool moment to go, holy shit, like, look at this?
It was.
Or did it just happen
You've
so
grown up with it.
progressively?
Oh, I've grown up with it.
Yeah.
Like I walked amongst like, drag lines when I was 8 and 9 year old.
Yeah.
The Christmas parties at Goonyella Mine were at the mine site.
Yeah.
So they used to bring all the mining machinery out to the front gate so us kids could climb all
Play
over.
all
it.
over
cool.
it. Yeah.
There was none of this, putting witches hats around them and all, out of service tags and danger tags. They bought nearly one of each machines that worked on the mine site to the front gate.
Yeah.
Santa Claus would turn up. You got massive big presents. Like it was very much a family type show. And so I grew up around it.
Yeah.
A little interesting thing, if we go back a bit, when the opening, Joe Peterson came up and opened up the Gregory, and my dad got taken off with all that group, and then we did a tour, and I sat up the front of the bus, and the tour guide he wasn't very clever, and he's going, oh, yeah, that's a dozer over there. And I said, yeah, it's a D9H, 410 horsepower, 3-speed transmission. And he more or less handed me the mic and said, here you go.
You done the spiel.
You probably know more than I do. So, and then they all learned who my dad was, and it was like, oh, okay.
That's why.
I can see that. But, yeah, I've always been obsessed with it. If you come to my house, I'm a huge model collector. I've probably got over 2,000 models in Rockhampton in my office there. I've got heaps of them in my office in Brisbane. I eat, sleep, breathe, models, remote control, dozers.
Have you got the Lego ones?
I've got 2 Lego ones. I haven't built them yet. I actually built the Lee Bear one.
Yeah.
I actually stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning to finish
it
book
off.
1. No, I finished book 1.
Woodsy said he's going to buy me one for Chrissy this year.
You want that one?
Yeah,
How
I
many
do.
days you got to do it?
Oh, mate, it doesn't matter. We'll get there.
But anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I've always been obsessed with it. I've been lucky to travel. I've been to Japan with Itachi, did a lot of work with them. When we at Gilumba, end up being one of the first customs to have the new EH4000 AC drive trucks, had their 3500 trucks. So we did a lot of testing. When those guys got wiped out by the tsunami, I knew a lot of those people. They did a lot of work at the mine with us. I used to take them out the gem fields, out the back of Emerald, going sapphire hunting.
They like that.
Oh, they loved it.
Yeah.
A lot of them guys knew, what their families did and all that. So that was a bit sad for those guys. And, we were most concerned about them. So very much a relationship. It's a big industry, but it's very small.
Yeah.
We've all been a part in each other's lives at some point. So Did a lot of work with these guys, of course, and other suppliers as well. Got to travel around most of Australia, and then got to meet people in America. Started going to America, Empire Cat in Phoenix, Jeff Miller over in Texas. Became good friends with Jeff. Started sourcing stuff out of America, South America. We just bought our last lot of trucks out of South America. So it's a huge industry, but it's very small.
Yeah.
You can't do nothing wrong.
No.
That's for sure.
Yep.
You'll get shot down the next day.
Yeah.
So I try and be good to everyone and treat everyone with respect and that sort of thing. So,
Yep.
And I think this was an industry that I dearly love. I'll definitely miss it if once I'm not too far off retirement. I'm 57, so I'm hoping in the next 3 years I can call it quits and go and spend some time doing other things and away I go.
Build that second Lego model.
Yeah,
You might get it in before then.
I've actually got an old. Timmy just showed me a vintage dozer you guys have got out here that you're building.
Yeah. Yep.
So Chris Hassel from Hassel's Auctions,
back in the day.
he actually bought me something that I didn't even know about. So I've got a dozer at my
He's done
dad's
that a few
place
times, hasn't he?
in a shipping container with 3 pallet loads of parts. And my dad's like, when are you going to build this? When I retire. So I've got a lot of things to do when I retire. I don't think I'll be bored, that's for sure.
Comiskey Mining Services today, how many bits of plant have you guys got?
We're up around the 175.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wet and dry hire?
We do mainly fully maintained.
Yep.
That's supply and fitters. We've got a couple of them operations, one here in New South Wales and one in Queensland that we do. Mainly dry hire.
Yep.
Virtually how all this come about, when we sold Comiskey Earth Moving to NRW, my dad had sort of said, I've had enough. We got a few options to get over other pits and that sort of thing. At that point, I'd moved to Rockhampton. I sat on the couch and I stared at my phone and I was just bored shitless, like seriously bored. I just finished running a workshop 7 days a week.
This is after the buyout.
Yeah, after the buyout. We looked after 143 people in the pit. Looked after, I think, close to 80 machines, 24/7. So you just can't. That just can't stop.
Yeah.
That's like a drag car going down the strip
tick.
at 300 mile an hour and coming to a halt when the parachute comes out. So I very much, I don't know whether you'd call it depression, but I was only 45 years of age, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And then Brendan rang me and said, we've got a EX 1900 up here in Mackay, and they actually want to wreck it. They want to pull it apart. I said, you need to come up and persuade these people to put it back together, because that was in that 2010, next boom after the 208
down
GFC.
Yep.
So everything started picking up. I went up there and had a look at it, and I just said something stupid like, I'll buy it. And they went, no, we're not selling it to you because you'll give it to your mate Murph across the road at Best Tractor Parts.
They'll wreck it, yeah.
They'll wreck it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So home I went. I pulled out all my laptops and hard drives and I costed this thing up and rang them the next day and said, I'll buy it. And they're like, no, we're not real keen on selling it. And I said, no, I'll rebuild it. And you guys can rebuild it.
In your shop, yeah.
Yep. I said, I'll pay the purchase price and then I want to do about 1.4 to 1.5 million bucks worth of repairs. And they're like, you're serious? I'm like, I need to do something.
Yeah.
Oh, you're getting back into business. Because unfortunately for NRW, they didn't sign any waivers against me. Non-compete.
Okay.
Because I was actually supposed to go and work for them after that, which then they changed their mind and they didn't want Dad and I. They already had their own people in place. So, but that's their
fine.
thing.
Yep.
That's fine. So I end up buying it. And at that point in time, lucky enough, along comes Claremont Coal and they wanted one. They couldn't get a new one for like 2 years.
Yep. 1900.
1900.
Yep.
So they said, what about this one? And they went, no, we're not taking this. And at that stage, it was the old version. And they went, no, the owner's going to pour in a heap of money. And they, okay, we'll come back and have a look later on, and which they did. And we signed up for 2 years. So then that was
a
I was back into the dry hire business.
Yep.
And because I was part of the safety and then knew all the people at Gillimbah, which next door, Yancoal, Yarrabee Mine, I had a good association with those guys. I started talking to them and they wanted a grader. So I went looking for a 16M grader and ended up finding 3 of them. And I said, I got a hard decision on which one to buy. And they said, no, we'll take all 3. So next thing, all of a sudden, I've got 4 machines in my fleet. I'm like, wow, what's happening here? I don't know if I want to do this again. You know, I've only just had 2 weeks off, and I'd actually just moved from Emerald. I still had my house in Emerald, which was good. Moved to Rockhampton. So here I was then driving back to Emerald for work, where I just lived for the past 36 years, which I didn't want to die there. I wanted to get out. So here I was going back there again. Yeah. So that's how we started Comiskey Mining Services. Brendan didn't come along for about another 2 years. He was still working at Itachi. I pretty well did everything myself, working on site, going to Brisbane, going to head offices. And I think at that point, Brendan had just about had enough of working for OEMs. He came along, and it was quite funny how he started with me. He said, how much money do I need to start with you? And I think I said about $4 million.
Buy in,
Buy in. He's, really? I'm like, yeah, man, you know what this shit costs. You've been selling it to me. So he went off and he rang me and he said, I think you were joking, weren't you? And I went, yes, I was joking.
Yeah.
How much do you need? And we came up with agreements. So it was a 60-40 split. And so away we went.
And got into it.
Yeah, I actually started on my birthday, 11th of July.
Jesus.
So this year in July it'll be 14 years. And we're only going to do it for, I think, 7.
So then you had to get into dump trucks and everything then?
No, I got into the 24s. All that gear out of Olympic Dam in South Australia. Remember when that got knocked on the head?
There was a heap of low-hourred stuff and new stuff.
That was machines for jam.
Yeah, that was a good deal.
These things were fully decked out to the max. So we ended up getting 2 24s and 2 777G water carts straight to work.
Oh, shit.
No extras. You know, they had every BHP mine spec you could dream of on those things. So away we went. So by then, this was 10 machines in, 6-7 months. And then we end up getting the Fox Lee deal. That was for 10 789s. And at that time then, that's when the industry collapsed.
So
it was like panic stations.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah. We were living at the camp in Middlemount, and about 5 o'clock in the morning we started getting emails turning gear off, wanting price cuts. And we were only putting the 7th truck together at Fox at that stage. So we went over and asked Anglo and said, well, do you want us to stop? And they're like, no, keep going.
Mobile,
So, and that's what we did. And that was pretty hard times because I was only new, and lucky enough I went to the NAB bank and got a pretty good deal off the NAB, but then the restrictions come in and paying loans off, and then they started wanting every piece of me as,
tied
up.
Yep.
What money I got out of Comiskey Earth Moving when we sold that was pretty well thrown in there as collateral type thing. So it took nearly 9 years to get my money back out of NAB. We went through some scary things, but I think what that did, I think that made us stronger and tougher.
Got you through it.
It got us through us. And then another thing what happened to us was the pits flooded at Middlemount.
I remember that, yes.
And 4 of our new trucks went underwater, completely underwater.
Delivered.
Yeah, and they only had like 1,100 hours on the clock.
Oh, shit.
But that was actually a godsend. Funny enough, it actually turned out to be a good thing where when we read the fine print on our deal with the bank, natural causes, we actually went back and refinanced the trucks. We were able to refinance them.
Oh.
Because we got skinned alive with our rates in the downturn, but we still operated. And lucky enough, working with Anglo there at Fox, they were really good to us. And then we structured a deal with them. We end up coming up with fixed rates per month. We end up getting some fitters in. So we just worked together. And then most mines at that stage got turned off with their CapEx. So I honestly say, I reckon we grew about 400%. Because it was only Brendan and I. We made decisions on the spot. If you wanted something, I'd deliver it to you. And we grew. We grew in a downtime. Like, people were just spinning out. And we actually lied a fair bit. Like, we'd meet people and it was doom and gloom, and we're going, it's bad. It's bad. Meanwhile, we've got new dozers turning up
Turning
and
up.
graders, and
And you're buying them at cheap prices.
we were
and-
buying them at cheap
Yeah.
prices. Yeah, we visited Ritchie Brothers in Brisbane quite a few
Yeah,
times. So
and you get a deal.
got a deal.
Yep.
A lot of companies went belly up. We'll buy your gear off you.
Yep.
So in no time, we mustered 55 machines in a downtime, and we grew. We got a good solid base. So we'd learnt from the bad times.
Yep.
We stopped flying. We stopped using credit cards. We stayed in just motels in Emerald or Middlemount. We were on site doing stuff.
Campuses.
Yeah, whatever we needed to do. And it was pretty well much him and I, and then Nige come along.
You still have that old caravan that you towed out in the bush?
No,
You have to stay in that?
I don't want to do that again. My days of caravanning, because people go, when you're retired, you buy a caravan. I went, no, I'm not buying a caravan.
No.
Well, Woodsy, you just got rid of yours, didn't you?
Yeah, got rid of it.
Yeah.
Wasn't getting used enough.
Got a good deal.
I think it was. Don't know if it, just gone.
Yeah,
When
right.
you sleep in one for 14 years, you've had enough.
Yeah.
That's enough.
There
Especially
wasn't
in summer.
no aircon down there in the
Summer, man, it was, and I was doing night shift on the machines out blade plowing and all that stuff. And you'd come home in the morning and you'd have like 3 or 4 showers
just a
just to cool down.
Yep.
And the old van, she was, it's an oven.
Yeah.
I'd go and sit out in the car with the aircon on
starter up. Yeah.
and run it for like 1 or 2 hours just to have a bit of aircon and try and get some sleep.
Get
Yeah.
a couple of hours of cool
Because that
sleep.
night at 6, you were back in the dozer.
Yeah.
So no, it's been interesting times, and we grew the business, and went from there. Picked up some really good jobs. We've been with Yancoal at Yarrabee for 14 years. We've been at Clermont Coal for 14 years. Just good relationships with people. Very small industry once again. If you stuff up. We tried to go over into Western Australia, and we really didn't have the connections, and we came back with like a dog with his tail between his legs, and we weren't really set up. And then we came into New South Wales a few years ago, so it's been going really well down here because we were dealing with DGI and other manufacturers down here, so we started to know people.
Yep.
Like we did do a lot of dealings with people in Perth, but we didn't know their industry.
Yeah.
We were a bit blinded to the hard rock mining and iron ore mining, so we weren't really up to it, how it all operated sort of thing. So we just stuck to doing our stuff in
Different
central
specs
Queensland.
and
Yeah,
stuff
different
like that.
specs,
Yeah.
different requirements. And they're more isolated than we are, so they wanted, low air equipment,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So
Are you guys like predominantly in the Hunter, or are you out west as
predominantly
well?
in Queensland.
Oh, in terms of the New South Wales.
Yeah, Hunter Valley
operations,
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, mainly the Hunter. So I think we're on about 4 or 5 different sites there.
Yep.
We're on about 4 different sites in WA. So, but mainly concentrated in Queensland.
Yeah.
It's convenient for us. We've got my head office is in Brisbane. We've got a head office, mainly the maintenance sections in Mackay. We've got a small branch out here at Mount Thorley.
Yep.
And then we've got a couple of guys roaming around in WA, more or less just work from home type thing.
Yep.
It's in a bit of a lull over that side of the fence at the moment, so
Yeah.
just take it easy type thing.
It's a pretty impressive story. I knew bits and pieces of it, but
Look,
Yeah.
I'm always a goer. I don't know, working for my dad, like he was pretty well centered on what he wanted to do. He wanted to get out. He always reckoned he was holding me back. And I just see potential, growth. I'm not afraid of having a go.
Yeah.
I never really made it. I was right into the motocross and all that. My size, I was not a sporting person. I played rugby league, I played cricket, squash, all like that, but I was never a scholar at it. And this is something I'm good at. So it was.
And enjoy.
I enjoy it very much. I love the people,
Yep.
people that I've met, like you guys.
Yep.
Man, I can go to America and go and meet people. I can go to Japan and stuff
well,
like
that's
that.
when I met you. We'd spoken on the phone before, but it took to get to Mine Expo in Vegas to
Yeah,
meet you there.
Yeah.
to meet up.
Yeah.
Like I must have got pulled up 30 times at Mine Expo just
Yeah.
from people who knew me. Like, so every night was out for dinner. So Vegas is never a dull moment
No.
with the mining people. They don't mind having a drink, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
They're all there for that.
Very social group is us mining people,
Yeah.
or earth moving people, should I
Earth
say?
moving, yeah.
So I don't know. I keep talking to my dad, and he loves what I've done. He does his own farm and stuff like that, but he always rings up. I think he's glad he's out of it, but at the same time, he likes what we're doing. He always rings up, how's all the gear going and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my bad day.
Sounds like another bloke who might be listening to this episode and his name's on the logo here.
That's right. He'd be listening.
Hi,
Mr.
David.
Griffo.
What technology did you see coming in the mining industry that's going to be like a really huge game changer? You see like automation of dozers and that type of thing and trucks?
I know it's heading that way,
Yep.
but it's scary.
Yeah.
Electronics and dirt don't go well together. I remember the first D10R that we got was one of the first, fully electronic type things. Man, it was a lemon. Fair income. I had the worst experience with that machine.
Yeah.
Everything on that machine that could fail, failed. And I was hating it. We ended up selling it. We ended up trading it in on a Komatsu, would you believe? That's how much I hated that thing. But unfortunately, that's where industry's going.
Yes.
People want to record everything, GPS. You got autonomous dozers doing dozer push.
Dozer push, like that's a huge.
Excavators, autonomous trucks with no operators. We got to go to the CAT Centre at down in Tucson after the Vegas last year, and I'd never been there. My dad had been a few times. So, there was 30-odd machines in front of us and there was not one operator on it, and they're all working together. So is that what's going to kill operators off? Who knows? Is a whole pit going to be satellite and only have a few people on site at the main gate?
Yeah,
You're still going to need fitters to work on them. So I don't know where it's going to go. Now they're talking hydrogen. They're talking battery operated.
Yes.
How long can the battery operate? That new big 798, I think it was, at Mine Expo, had the big arm out the side of it that runs along on a trolley assist on the side.
Yeah.
How will that go? Komatsu was pushing their new trucks.
Yep.
The new big Liebherr was there.
The Fortescue Liebherr at the T264, I watched some of that presentation there. Very impressive and probably seems to be the most feasible in the now out of all of the systems that I'd seen. But again, it sounds like something out of the start of Terminator. Yeah.
Look, I'm a bit
scary.
biased in some of this because me owning my own business, I don't think we'll be able to transition.
Yeah.
Because the rates aren't
Won't
there.
be there, definitely. Yeah.
They're not there. And, we've talked to people at CAT and they're going, look, it's 10 years off before you contract people get into the industry with that sort of equipment because the OEMs are virtually going to be the first one. And, the bigger tier ones and mines are going to be the first ones to get this equipment. Once you start getting phased out with your mechanical and diesel trucks, then you will have to transition into this. I'm hoping that I'll be retired by then.
Yeah.
You said
I think it's. I don't know. I don't totally agree with it.
Yeah.
Dirt and electronics just don't mix.
Well, you said before that you're only getting into this for 7 years and it's 14 and you want to retire in 3. So that's at least going to be 6, mate.
I know. I say those sorts of things. It's bad.
And are you hearing any whispers of Tier 4 in Australia, that type of stuff yet?
Yeah, we're lucky. We've only got some of the AdBlue machines and that sort of thing. Some of the vehicles we've got AdBlue. And if you don't use them all the time, they're a trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a 325 CAT down at my farm that I used to do our off-road tracks with.
Oh, yeah.
And if you weren't on that every day, you'd have to get a CAT person down to reset it, clean the system.
Clean her out, burn her out.
Because it just crystallises.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's something you got to be using every day. We bought a new 18M into our fleet and then it got turned off at most sites because of the AdBlue shit.
Oh, did it?
Sites didn't want it. They want the latest and greatest, but they didn't want it.
Yeah.
And it's sitting over in Perth now, hasn't got a job.
Yeah.
So, yes, they want the technology, but they don't.
Yeah.
It comes with a headache.
Yeah.
And especially, I don't know, these remote sites will get on with being able to repair them. So, I'm not all for. We've got a couple of the new KSN D11s in our fleet. Touch wood, they haven't been too bad so far. They're only new. We got a new 6040 CAT excavator, 400 tonner. Had quite a few glitches with it.
Yeah.
We ended up getting a free trip to Batam with our maid last year to explain all the drama we've had with it. So apparently they've fixed up most of them. But
have they? Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lemon.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute waste of time,
Oh,
unfortunately. No. So
you stick to the Tachi?
Yes, I should have done, but they didn't have one at the time, so I had to buy yellow, much to the disgust of Brendan.
Yeah, and then you look at some other contractors and they're prior to the fleet, the 6040, so it must have been a lemon.
We
Yeah.
actually found when we got to the factory, it was actually the first one off the factory floor.
Oh, Yep.
When they went from Dortmund in Germany and set up camp there, we were actually first one off the group. So I had to stand up in front of the classroom, explain all
You
the
were
issues.
the display model.
Yeah, so we got it bad. But hey, to their credit, Hastings have been very good. The boys in Brisbane there,
accommodating.
yeah, Brad and all them, they've been very good to help us get it going. So it's back on track.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good then.
As for the future, I can't say it's heading in the right direction. Some of it I can.
You didn't drive here in a Tesla, did you?
No, I don't. That's one thing I don't do. I don't hire electric cars.
No.
Look, I reckon they've got their place. If you live in the city,
Do we have the infrastructure in Australia?
City, yes.
like driving, say for me yesterday, driving from Newcastle, that's fair enough. That's only a short drive.
Yep.
But if you want to start going out in the bush, where's the charge station? You have to hang around those. I know our Premier said that they're going to put in 38 charge stations or something in Queensland.
Yeah.
So what do you got to do? You got to plan your stops. And then they're not a quick thing to charge.
And like the boys in Canada and that, they're not game to go into the snow. Like if they break down or get stuck.
Well, I can imagine sitting in a car and the battery goes flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd freeze.
Freeze.
Yeah.
So I've been in a couple of the F-150s, the electric ones in the States, the Lightnings, super quick, super fast, but
And quiet.
they're quiet. You got all that extra boot space in the front where your engine was. But unfortunately, I'm not going to go
They have
down
their
that
place.
route.
Yeah.
They have their place.
No fleet of Cybertrucks with the Comiskey logo on the doors.
No, mate. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone to follow in my footsteps just yet. So I think it'll be pull up stumps when it gets to that stage, because at the moment, the industry, as in a contractor, just can't support the purchase price of these new units. And like I was saying before, you're going to be waiting in line from the mines to get them first. And then they'll probably use us up to that point. And then I'd say if you want to stay in the game longer, I'd say then you're going to have to start buying them.
You'll have to. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to stay in this industry.
Yeah.
Even for you guys, like, you're going to have to start keeping electronic parts.
Oh, exactly.
Batteries and...
The changes in these trucks are different to a standard truck.
You're not having transmissions, you're not having final drives to the point where, if they're going to go electric motors in the finals like electric trucks.
Electric trucks, there's a big... Yeah.
So what you're going to keep on the shelf is going to be totally different to what you do now.
Yep. In 10 or 15 years, it'll be different. Yeah.
So your business will have to transition like ours.
Yeah, to go with it.
So at what point do you say, now we're going to do this, or we're going to call it quits?
Yep.
And at that point, I don't know what the cost is going to be. You see what they're spending on all these things over in Perth with the hydrogen trucks and all that.
Yeah.
That's cost them money.
Yeah.
Who's paying for that? I know Triggy with FMG is putting a lot of it in himself, and he's got grants and all that from the government, but that's big money.
Big money.
Then you got to go and test them. And after we're going to Itachi, and like they had a hole in the ground there, and they run a set of final drives for 4,000 hours, and a guy just sits there and watch them, and they simulate going up ramps and down ramps and all that
Load
stuff.
it up. Yeah.
They load it up and stuff. And I remember even going to CAT, talking to them. Their testing is not nowhere near it used to be, because it's so hard to get onto sites these days and do testing and all that stuff. And I think at Tucson, they're pretty lucky. There's a massive big mine next to Tucson
that they can bounce off.
Yeah, they just take gear over there.
So it's hard to get you for those pointers back then, wouldn't they?
Mate, I must admit, we had those 3500s and we had issues with them.
Yeah.
And we would suggest something to them. And then when I went to Japan the second time, they'd actually done those changes.
Yeah. They listened.
They listened. A lot of the mounts broke off them. You couldn't get into the back to change some filters. And I said, our guys say, can we just put the filters inside the access door so they can reach in and just spin the filters off instead of climbing in, because it was confined space because of the mine regs. And next minute, retro kit, they come and fit it.
They're on, yeah.
So they were very good. It was new to them with the new trucks, the AC drive trucks. But then when the new 4000s turned up, we got 3 of those. They were Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
They were a good truck.
Right.
But we just didn't have them long enough. NRW bought us out, and they ended up getting them, and they transitioned. I've watched them through their life cycle. Like, they've had rebuilds and all that sort of stuff.
They've made life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the thing in also our industry is there is biased people towards electric drive trucks. They still want mechanical because that's what their fleet is. So we try and we try and have a bit of both in our fleet.
Yeah.
So a bit of Komatsu, you know,
But
Cat.
why do they do that in different runs, like have an electric drive and no, I'm not putting
Speeds.
mechanical? Oh, yeah.
Speeds
Okay.
up ramps.
Yep.
At Gillenbar, we got it firsthand. You know, our goalpost changed so much when we were at that mine. Equipment was a bit hard to get. It wasn't worth going buying new stuff the way our contract was written. So we ended up getting some 630s, 630Es.
Dresses, yeah.
And, man, they were fast.
Yep.
So then it was like, shit, we need to go and get another one of them. And then it was like, oh, well, let's get 730s. So we put 730s in with them. And then we transitioned into 793s. So then we'd have to keep the 793s separate.
Yep.
So we had all their little circuits running around. And the biggest thing is speed.
That's why.
Up ramps, everything. So keep them segregated. So I learnt a fair bit in 11 years at a mine site.
Yeah.
Very handy.
Yeah. Not just from a, you know, proven efficiency perspective, but
Hands-on.
lived and
Hands-on,
experienced. Yeah.
Good instance is steering clutches on dozers. I'd pretty well much say I'd be a master at the dozer push thing.
Yeah.
Slot dozing on steering clutches is very easy. You know, you get a load, you carry it to the end. Then when we started getting into doing the mining work where they're using them on dumps, people live on steering clutches. So your life expectancy from, you know, 16,000 hours or what, then all of a sudden goes to 12 or 13.
Yes.
So then your variances in the mine and then your different materials they walk around on. So, you know, Gillenbar was very sandy up one end because it was an old riverbed. Man, we were getting – the track life was half. You know, digger teeth. A set of grader edges would last a week. It's supposed to last 3 weeks. So next thing we had all these pricing like we didn't allow for this.
Yep.
You go one end of the pit, it was easy digging. You go the other end of the pit and you'd be just like, oh,
Burning.
shit, we got to have GET on site. So it was a good learning. You learn all them things. So then when we started getting more into the dry hire like what we are now, I've had that experience.
Yeah, you learn. Hang on, where are we working?
Yeah, I'd make sure I ask where you're going, what the soils are and all that sort of stuff. So, and it's been good being an operator.
It's cool to sit here in the middle of you guys, like, and having seen DGI over the years, you guys transitioning into like wrecking 830Es and
930Es
So
and that.
in the same sense, it's obviously been a learning curve for you guys. Like, you guys know your mechanical cat gear inside out, rattling part numbers off of every machine,
100%.
every serial. Was that challenging for you to
To
come
keep up
to
to
speed on
speed
that?
with
Yeah.
the technology that's out there and just a different model and trying to use a Komatsu database sys and that type of thing. It gets
It's
you,
different,
wow.
isn't it?
Trying to find the info.
Hitachi,
Yeah.
that's okay. Komatsu seems to be a bit harder, but like the old Cat Sys is the godfather out there. It's pretty easy to.
The part numbers are a lot longer
So
when you got to put them into your marketing
Yeah.
materials.
Oh,
Sort of
definitely.
Check, make sure I've got everything right.
and like the Hitachi part numbers are a lot different
Yeah.
to a Cat and a Komatsu one. So yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be good to go into Hastings in Emerald when they opened up, and there was a guy behind the counter there in spare parts. And that guy, I'd be in the car even if I was ringing him up, and I'd just say, I want an oil filter, an O-ring, I want this, and he'd be rattling parts.
Part numbers.
Oh, part numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool. You know?
Yeah.
You try and do that to a Komatsu number
Yeah.
or a Hitachi
Dash.
number,
Yeah.
dash this. And then the little parts books they used to give you with the dozers, you know, it was like a little novel. And, you know, and you're trying to bend pages open to read the numbers. So
Yeah.
it's a bit funny with different machines like that.
Yeah.
Changed a lot.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I've really enjoyed hearing the story, and I love your opinions. Not afraid to tell us what you think about a few of the OEMs and that sort of stuff, which is probably a good transition into other sorts of vehicles, which would be your other passion, which is racing.
Yep.
One thing you said before, you were saying about how there's testing problems here, in the mine testing. Conversation we had the other day was about vehicle testing, and for those listening that aren't aware of Brett and Comiskey Racing, you guys come second outright in the Finke last year.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was a big thing, and we're only going out there to have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Hey.
And mate, we were stoked because we got the DGI logo on the side of the car. So
You did.
Yeah,
did,
a good place.
Yeah.
That sort of come about because the year before we didn't have the best year, and so I rang up Tim and I said, you know, it wasn't fair what I did to yous. I sort of only did half a year, and I'd like to carry the logo on the door again this year, which was 24. And this is what we're up to. I'd bought another car out of the US, a Brenthal, which was another complete lemon. It's still in the shed, pulled in pieces right now.
Trophy truck.
Yeah, trophy truck.
Yes.
And then we went down the avenue of buying Toby Price's ex-Tisco, and we thought, let's go and have some fun. Let's just go and enjoy ourselves.
Yep.
And we took, at that stage, I had the Brenthal going. We just got the motor back from the States, and so we went out there and had a bit of fun and finished second.
A second. Great effort.
So I still look at the trophy in my office and go, wow, that's pretty cool.
So the thing you said to me that was really interesting the other day, because we're such a big country, such a vast expanse of land out there, you guys really struggle to find places to test these cars.
We do.
And you've got your farm, which you can...
We do. The reason why I bought the farm in Yeppoon was mainly at that stage I was into the UTV racing, which is a lot smaller car.
Yeah.
A little 2-seater thing, 1,000cc. So I went about buying the shittiest farm I could find to pure and simply build a track on.
Yeah.
I'd work all day and then go down there in the afternoon and go and do 20, 30 laps.
Yep.
Just to get practice. And that's where it sort of started from, But the problem is when you got these big trophy trucks that do over 200 kilometres an hour.
Wow.
At my farm, it wouldn't even get up to speed across my farm, So it is very hard in Australia. We do struggle with that. Some guys have got test tracks on their properties. Like we were driving 2.5 hours out to Warwick from Brisbane just to give it a run on a flat.
Yep.
There's a bit of a rally track out there and the old mate lets us on it, but it's a flat track.
Is it just like national parks?
It is. It's very control freaks, our government. They don't want you doing that sort of stuff.
We're a totally different story in the States.
We're so far backwards. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We're behind the 8 ball.
You mentioned like in Vegas, you just got to go down the road and you're out there in the...
Mate, we'd leave the motel in Vegas and within 15 minutes you'd pull up on the side of the road and go testing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Easy as that. And there'd be 20 or 30 cars out there testing.
Yeah.
Whose land's that?
It's government-owned land.
National park
there is a name for that because they get the permits when they have like race day.
Yeah.
They have tortoises in the desert and donkeys and hares and all that sort of stuff. So you'll see fences across gullies and things like that where turtles walk and stuff like that. So the off-road community is very good in protecting that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And they return the land back. Most of the tracks are regraded and stuff like that. So we're behind the 8 ball.
So where did you test the trophy truck when you
here?
Picked it up here?
Yeah.
When I bought Toby's, I actually flew back to Brisbane for work. I drove out. I like driving out there and camping with the boys, and it takes us 3 days to get out there. So camp under the stars and cook a steak on the barbie and stuff. Went out there, and then had to come home for work, and then went back out there. Got held up in Adelaide. I hadn't even been in Tobe's car. It had been living next door to me for 3 years, and he'd won Finke 3 years in a row.
And you hadn't.
I hadn't even sitting in the thing. So I landed in Alice Springs, of all things. We had 6 millimetres of rain, which is very rare for the desert.
Yep.
We drove about 100 kilometres out of town to a guy's front gate, and it was 6 kilometres up to his house, and he let us practice there. I did 10 minutes up and back, doing some scandos, and
then come
it
second
was raining.
in the Finke,
And
it was raining, and it was like, let's put it on the trailer. Right, we know our stuff.
Yeah.
And, and a good friend of mine, Billy Geddes, he came out with us, and because we had 2 cars, we had 3 drivers, we worked out, and Motorsport Australia couldn't get their head around who's doing what.
Yep.
You can't do this. Who says?
Yep.
There's nothing in your rules. So we end up pulling it off. Unfortunately, the Brenthal that I was driving, decided to die at the 160k mark on the way down. We got towed then all the way down the Finke end, and I pretty well had the shits and wanted to go home at that point. And then as we got closer down the other end, we hear on the grapevine that Billy G had come in second place with the Tisco, and same thing for him. He actually did go out and did a bit more testing than I did.
Yeah, okay.
He actually got to do, I don't know what it was. I was back in Brisbane working. So, man, he killed it. Like, I was so stoked for him. And, man, you would have seen the grin on his face. It was from ear to ear.
Yeah, coming down there.
So then the hard thing was, do I kick him out of the seat? I had a lot of backlash on social media, like, leave him in the car. You're not capable of doing this sort of stuff.
Wow.
It was a bit depressing, the shit that I copped on social media. It was my car, and we were doing this for fun. And eventually I thought the only way I'm going to do this is if I send Billy home. So Billy said, no, man, you're driving the car. And Motorsport Australia wanted to know because they wanted to print who was in the car the next day.
Yep.
And eventually I said, no, it's me. So word got out that it was me, and then I copped more shit over that. So Billy goes, man, I'm going back to Alice tonight, and I want to be on the finish line. And he ended up getting in the booth with Curran and doing the commentating, and he said he had no fingernails left. So he put me in a very good position. He put me in second on the grid.
Yeah.
I had about a 3.5 minute gap back to Smoothie in third. Smoothie came and asked me what I was going to do, and I said, Smoothie, I want to finish. Seriously, if you want to come by, you toot your horn, I'll get out of your way for you because, man, you got an all-wheel drive Mason, you're going to smoke us. I've never been in this car before. And I took off, and Smoothie didn't catch us up until about the 160 mark, and he come floating by, and then I realised, man, I must be driving Miss Daisy. I'm going too slow.
Yeah.
And Corey, that was in me, my navigator, who has been my navigator from the first time I ever went to Finke. So that's about our 8th Finke together. He said, man, you got to start pushing it, get into it. So we went from like 4th gear across the whoops to eventually 6th gear across the whoops at about 180 kilometres an hour. And man, the adrenaline that was flowing through my body. And we stuck within Smoothie's dust. And then we came around a corner, and here's poor old Smoothie on the side of the road with a tyre and rim going off the car.
Yep.
So I got by, and I just said to myself, right, he's not coming by again.
Yep.
This is it. I'm not catching first, Bo. Good on Bo for winning Finke for the first time, but I'm keeping second. And I lifted, and that is one of the best drives I've ever had in the car. It was so much fun. The car was set up by Toby Price. Everyone knows who Toby is.
Yep.
You couldn't fault the thing, the suspension, the steering, the handling, the power, everything was there. There was things happening behind me. People were crazy. Cookie from Victoria wasn't far behind me, but then he looped it out. And so we come into the stadium, and poor old Billy G had just about chewed his nails off his fingers. And we come around there, and, man, I looked across, and poor old Corey was crying, and that was very emotional for all of us because at the end of the day, we'd never been in the car, and we actually just went out there to have some fun.
Yeah.
Like just a mate thing. We weren't in the competition. I'd gone to Pooncarry with the Brenthal, and it failed a transmission. So it was, mate, 3 weeks before Finke's when we decided to go. We only just got the car virtually wrapped with the DGI logo on it now, black and red colours because everyone said, no, they're the colours we want. So spare of the moment.
You guys going out again?
Yeah, this year we're going to
plan it too much. Just turn up and
this year
have a crack.
Because I won the extreme 2-wheel drive class for the whole year, like in the class, and I finished third outright in 22, I think it was, or 23, 22. Yep. So if I see a lot of things from my business transition into my racing, logistics, how we go about fixing things, budget.
Yeah,
these things aren't cheap.
Mate, it's a big, like what you're telling me now, it's a big operation. All you blokes are going out there, multiple vehicles, like you guys you need to have a good backing.
Tyres, fuel, engines.
It's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. If you have a look at all the big teams, they're owned by someone big.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing it. If you work 9 to 5 in a job, you wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Yeah. Or you'd be doing it on a shoestring.
Yeah.
And a few guys do, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work.
Like, if you don't mind me asking, like, what's a ballpark sort of cost to run something like this for a year? Or
a truck, it's worth
the first year in the trucks. I think we spent about $250,000, and that was just to do the rounds. That's just fuel, accommodation, some tires, a bit of prep.
Yeah.
When I was racing in America with the UTVs, I think we spent $2.5 million in about 3 years.
Wow.
That was only little golf carts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that was expensive, but that was something I'd always wanted to do in my life. Like,
now I understand why you blokes squeeze as many sponsor stickers on the car as you can, even little ones this big down near the mud guards.
Look, I appreciate DGI coming on board there for them couple of years with the buggy and then the truck. It's a very small part of what the costs are. It's good to have them on board though, a good camaraderie, and it's good that Timmy bought out some of your customers.
They enjoy that. Yeah, you showed
it's
them.
huge.
They're talking to us. They go, "Oh, this is unreal." Brett's giving us beers, and this is cool.
Yeah, so it's an expensive sport. I'm lucky that I got a business behind me. I'd already had money from my previous venture with my dad, so I'm lucky in life what I do. I'm super grateful for the people in my life, my friends, like my friend Wayno at the moment's building our engine. Hopefully it'll be finished this week for Tobe's truck, but parts are a big thing.
Yeah, you should listen to some of these engine stories, like what they're doing to get the ultimate 1,000 horsepower out of that donk.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot in it. It's not easy. So, and once again, we're very much backwards in Australia, and I'll honestly say this on air, we are backwards. Our industry and our racing is backwards. I'll keep saying that.
I don't think it's capped just at the industry and racing. I think
the 7-litre rule is an absolute joke as far as I'm concerned, because you just can't buy stuff off the shelf.
Yeah.
You know, you either get a big block and detune it or whatever, or something like that. But you know, I'm now waiting 6 months for a crankshaft.
So what speed difference is that on those trucks going to be with a different
There's
donk?
a fair bit of difference in speed, but you know, we can. And the thing is, for me, I came from a V6 twin turbo buggy. At half the weight of a truck. That thing used to wheel stand.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, you know, comparity and all this sort of stuff, parity. So hang on a minute. I've already had one of these buggies. They're over 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah, that's right.
And here I'm running around in a 600 horsepower truck. It's only on day 2 when the track gets rough that trucks really open up. That's their forte.
With that footage we got of you guys, we've used with DJI quite a bit, and on the booth at Mine Expo, watching you guys just come around the corner, the suspension on that thing, like, I don't know how fast you're going, but it's just floating, you know.
They're unbelievable to drive. Like, I had a go of friends up in Rocky, and I went, no, this is not for me.
Yep.
And then, you know, I was a big fan of Shannon Wrench's, and I'd had my last UTV race out at Finke, and we broke. I was mega disappointed. Like, I'd pumped some serious money in this car. You know, had all the latest and greatest. Everything was rebuilt. Everything was new. And probably a $50 part broke. And I was just heartbroken. And then I flew back home, and I was going to work, and I went, stuff it, I'm going to ring Shannon. And I rang Shannon up and said, man, I need to get out of these things. You know, I need to get into the big buggies and that sort of stuff. And, oh, yeah, what's your budget and all that? And I was telling him. And he goes, oh, my car's for sale.
Oh, shit.
I turned around on the highway, straight back to Rocky, on the plane, down in Warrnambool in Victoria, and met up with Shannon, and I ended up buying the buggy. And he goes, well, I've got to do one more race meet and then you can have it. So that's how I got into the big buggies. And so I drove all the way from Rockhampton to Warrnambool in Victoria, which is no easy feat.
No.
Down, picked the car up, picked all the stuff up. Him and his dad are awesome people, so down to earth. Cup of tea and, you know, lunch with their mum.
Yep.
And off I went.
Loaded up.
We were so keen, straight to the farm in Rockhampton, unloaded this thing, and this thing's doing wheel stands. Frightened the shit out of us. Scared the living shit out of us.
Yeah, shit, what are you doing here?
Wow.
Yep.
What have I gone and done?
Yep.
Couldn't drive it for shit. Had not a clue. Absolute no idea. And eventually, after a while, we caught on, let's watch the in-car footage of what Shannon did.
Yeah.
And then that was when we really actually started.
Ticked.
We had a win.
Yep.
We went out to Gundy, never been there before, and ended up winning it outright. So just watching in-car footage, we were doing it all wrong.
Yeah, right.
And that and still to this day, I reckon that was one of the biggest learning curves I've ever had.
Yeah, okay.
So, but those things you gotta have what your mum gave you at birth.
Yep.
And if you're not using them, they'll frighten the shit out of you. Had a few scary moments with them, but wanted to ultimately transition into the trucks. You know, that was the biggest thing in America. So we'd bought trucks then in America. I got a pretty good deal off one there, and then we got into one in Australia then.
Yeah.
So off we went. We bought another ex-Toby Price Geyser truck, which went through Paul Wheel, which went on to us. So then that's when we really started getting the hang of it. went out to Finke first time and finished 17th outright or something like that. Had a pretty cruisy run. Only went bush once, hit a tree. So that was learning curve. The following year, then we finished first in the class. Like we did the whole. And this is back to what we bring out of business. Like I like doing a championship because it's regimental. You know, it's not about winning. It's about being consistent.
Yeah.
It's being good with mechanical sympathy. It's about having the whole show. Everyone doing their bit. You know, Dan Mackenzie that works for me at the shop. You know, the prep, everything, the logistics of it all. Having fuel, having tyres, having rims, suspension settings, all our clothes, and all that sort of the safety stuff. So we bring a lot of that into our racing as well.
Yeah.
And we won it. You know, we went to Kalgoorlie and unfortunately one of the guys up front DNF'd, and that pushed us from 4th into 3rd. So we got our number 3 plate, which we're allowed to use, and that pushed us into 1st place in the Extreme Two-Wheel Drive class. So,
Wow. Yeah.
so that was pretty good. So I'd won a championship in 2018 in America in the Unlimited UTVs. I've won 2 world championships in the UTVs, and then to come back here and then win. I got 2nd or 3rd in the short course series here in Australia. I never cracked number 1, and then to finish 1st in the trucks. That pretty well. Yes, this is what I want to do, and that's what we've sort of now
Concentrated.
That's what we've concentrated on.
Yep.
So we're lucky enough. We've got one in America. It's at Lake Havasu in Arizona. So my good friend Chris Redden over there, he looks after the truck, preps it. We fly in and virtually drive to the race meet, and you know we're good friends, man. I've got so many friends in America. It's not funny. We get treated like royalty when we turn up at the race meets there. So we've had the DGI logo on the side of the car over there as well. And then this year here we're concentrating on the Australian series. We'll use the first ARB round at the end of March as a bit of an opener.
Yep.
To give the car a shakedown. We'll leave the car down there, and then we'll race Pooncarry the first round of the series, and away we go. Probably back off from the American stuff a bit. I'm a bit busy with work, and we've got other things going on as well. So, and the Aussie dollar's not really helping.
Yeah, terrible.
And I do it for fun.
Yep.
You don't make big prize money out of this. You
No.
can't make a living out of it.
There's a lot of camaraderie in the industry by the sounds of it, and you guys are doing it for fun. When the decision was being made for you to jump behind the wheel at the end of the Finke, or Billy, and you said there was a bit of conjecture online.
Yeah.
Was it fans? Was it what were they saying? What was the
They just said
there?
to leave Billy in the car.
Yeah.
You know, he'd gone from, I think Billy qualified like 7th on the grid and then moved up to second.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
So-
but he's doing it way longer than me. I looked up to Billy. I met Billy at the Caves pub in Rockhampton.
Right.
And to me, he was one of the legends, like him and Bo and all them guys, Greg Gardner, Brad Gallard and all them. They were like legends to me. I
Pioneers,
look
eh?
up to people in those sorts of sports.
Yeah.
So to have him in my car and have him as a friend and a drinking buddy as such. And when we got down the other end, I was very overwhelmed, and I had a hard decision going, man, he could put my car on second. But at the end of the day, we're here for fun, and we'd made a promise that this is what we're going to do. Unfortunately, we didn't get to run the other car back.
Didn't get it back.
So
Yep.
poor old Dan missed out on a drive, but it was like, no, dude, it's your car. You're driving it.
Yep.
And I'm glad I did, because then the next meet, everyone was like, this is a fluke. And I turned up and I finished in second spot, 24 seconds behind the leader.
Yeah.
A lot closer. Yeah.
Yes, a lot closer. And then unfortunately we had engine dramas after that, and that was the end of the championship for us. So
Okay.
we pulled out. So we've not raced in Australia since July last year.
Since then, yeah.
Yeah. And then we went over to America in September when Mine Expo was on.
Yep.
Did Mine Expo, did Tucson, the proving ground, and then went to Barstow and spent a week at Barstow in 45-degree heat and raced 400 miles in the desert
Holy
there.
shit.
I forgot you were there, and I'd come back from Mine Expo. I'm ringing you. You're probably asleep in the middle of the night. This is fucking guy ringing me.
Oh, man, it was hot.
But hot, yeah.
It was so hot.
So what's a donk worth in those trucks?
The big blocks over there, they're about 107,000 US
US.
for the big
Jeez.
582 big blocks.
Yep.
Because I'm a power freak. Engines here, unfortunately, aren't much difference
Yeah.
in price. And this is my argument. Like, everything's got to be custom made for the 6 litre and 7 litre options. Not many people have them on the shelf. We're now getting a motor built by Warspeed in New South Wales, so we've got something.
Yep.
But yeah, we're just buying the times. But yeah, things aren't cheap.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
50 odd grand for a gearbox.
Yep.
Um,
A tyre?
tyre $1,000 now.
$1,000. Yep.
And the last race we did at Barstow, because of the heat and the rocks, the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
track was rocks.
Chewing it up.
I'd hate to have operated a bulldozer around that track.
Yeah.
I think we did 6 flat tyres, so
Shit.
there's $6,000.
Bang. Weekend.
You know, $5,000 worth of fuel.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap.
Do you guys just bring all this out on trailers behind cars? You got a big truck? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, we're
logistically out
lucky.
there?
I got an ex-sprint car, Kenworth Transporter.
Yeah.
So we live in that. It's got nice shower,
Oh,
beds,
nice.
kitchen. And it's got plenty of storage for parts. Unfortunately, the trophy trucks now are too big to fit in the back, so
Yeah.
we had to go a trailer on behind that. So
Yeah, right.
then usually if we do a fly-in with Corey and I, Dan drives to the track and then we'll fly in, get a hire car.
Yep.
You know, and then meet him at the track and
Meet
then
him
we'll
there.
fly home. So most times, you know, I'm away from home no more than 4 days.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
I'll try and tie it in with going to one of the suppliers in South Australia or wherever we're going to race.
Yeah, work deal.
Try and do a bit of work stuff as well while I'm
Yeah.
away. We got the new Starlink on the roof now.
Yeah.
The race car's got a Starlink.
How good is it?
It's
I can't get it. It's all sold out at home at the moment. I've got to wait for more satellites.
So what's that mean in a rally car? Like having a Starlink in there? Are
communication.
you on the line?
We can talk. Yeah, we can have conversations. Live
Not
feed.
just your navigator,
Live feed.
the whole pit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really opened things
Have
up.
you got
Wow.
cameras on board, like streaming what you're seeing back there?
Yeah,
and-
we can do all that. They'll,
Shit.
they'll watch it in the Kenworth
Yeah, right.
in-car footage. Texting, all
Yep.
that sort of stuff.
Not while
It's
driving.
definitely no. It's definitely opened up our sport. Like you
Yeah.
were talking about technology and our mining machinery.
Yeah.
Yep.
The internet is probably one of the biggest things because the off-road racing is not very much a spectator thing. The indoor short course in front of people it's a big thing.
No, you get one good flyby somewhere, and that's it.
That's what you
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
But there's an event in America called King of the Hammers. Now, if you ever get a chance, if you aren't into motor racing, who cares? 188,000 people go and camp in the desert.
Jeez.
Yeah, wow.
There's streets.
Yep.
You get parcels delivered in the desert. You can buy anything. We got our whole car rewired with all our communications. We got Starlink fitted in the pits.
Yeah,
Wow.
right.
You can get your shocks serviced in the pits.
How long is this for? Like a week?
It goes for about 18 days.
Where?
They have so many classes. They have rock climbing, off-road racing, short course. It is an incredible event. I'd always wanted to be there, but it never lined up with other events. And last year, I said to Chris, I'm coming over, and I always go over and race and come home. I don't get to enjoy
Yeah.
America.
What you got? Yeah.
I said, I'm coming over for a holiday. We'll go testing. So we went down to Plaster City out the back of San Diego. We went and watched 2 rounds of the Supercross, which I'm very passionate about my motocross. That
Yep.
was my background. Then we got all the shocks redone in the car. Then we went to Barstow and did more testing. And he's like, well, we're ahead of schedule. Do you want to go to King of the Hammers? It's like 40 minutes away.
Oh,
Shit, yeah.
Yep.
Let's go. And I got there and I'm like, wow. How cool is this place?
How long do you guys stay out there for out of that 18-day window?
We stayed there for 4 days.
Yep. You
'cause
saw
we end up-
enough in that time?
Oh, you could easily like the stuff
Stay
that
a
goes
week.
on out
Yeah,
there,
right.
mate. There's
Yeah.
some wild people out there. But still all the same, you
Sounds
can
like
access.
that Burning Man festival, but for
Virtually.
motocross. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not far from
Yeah, right.
all that.
Yeah.
All in that same area is all around that
Yeah,
same
right.
part. Like we got
in the
invited.
desert.
We got invited to a private party with a guy, and they had the band in the backyard. Like this country and western
Yep.
singer's quite famous. He's in this guy's backyard on an back of an old truck
Playing.
playing.
Yeah.
I'm like, how cool is
Cool
this?
is that, yeah.
This is just people we've
Yeah.
met through the industry. So that was very exciting. But unfortunately, I got sick at the beginning of this year. I probably spent about a month down in the doldrums. So I missed that this year because it only just finished a week ago.
Yep.
I missed the first round of the off-road series. So virtually, that's why I come down here. I was keen to get out, Ryan. I was like, yeah, I'd had enough of Brisbane. So that's very unlikely for me to be bedridden like that. But yeah, I got seriously crook and I let everyone else go on holidays and unfortunately I got sick. I was supposed to mind the fort. So, but yeah, I'm out and about again now and back into it. So looking forward to the race season to start, that's for sure.
When you're on holidays there, like where's your favourite place to go in the States? You've obviously seen a lot of it.
Look, my next trip is going to be my 40th trip to America.
Yeah, wow. You'd be getting up there in your
Eh,
numbers, wouldn't you?
Had a few, not that many, but
Yeah, look, I'm a big fan of the desert.
Yeah.
I
yeah,
love
it
the
seems
desert.
to be. Yeah.
I love the quiet, the peace. I still tell a story when we first raced in Mexico at the Baja 1000. We were going across a big clay pan, and I looked up to our right, and the sun was shining on a big mountain cliff. And I said to Dan, he was Navi for me at the time, I went, "How cool is this, Dan? You know, look where we are,
Yeah.
man. We're racing the Baja 1000, 2 guys from Australia in a UTV, and have a look at what we're looking at, man. This is something special."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden a trophy truck come tearing past and dusted
Dust
us out.
everywhere.
And we're doing 72 mile an hour, and this thing blew the weeds off us
Did it?
and pulled in front of us and completely choked us out. And okay, reality clicked back in, and right, let's get on with
Keep
the race.
racing. Yeah.
But I'm a big lover of the desert. I'm
Yeah.
a big lover of the dirt. Like I play in the dirt. I own
Yeah.
a mining company. It's all dirt. I'm never really much. I'm a big fan of the V8s and all that stuff, but I would never go racing bitumen. I don't have any interest in it.
Dirt and all.
There
Dirt
you
and
go.
all.
Yep.
I'm a dirt person, mate.
Yeah. It's the dirt world
Yeah.
we're living in.
So that's anything to do. I've been over the East Coast a fair bit.
Yep.
A good friend of mine, Jeff, lives in Texas, so he gave us his car, and we cruised all around that area. Went all through the middle. I've been up to New York and been to San Francisco, and I like San Diego, Arizona. That's where our race shop first started its life, in Arizona. The guy that built the car, they were there, Lone Star. So we pretty well much set up shop in Arizona. So we pretty well knew every street in Arizona.
Yeah.
But then the logistics of getting there each time was a bit much. So we ended up moving into LA then.
Yeah.
So we moved out to Yucaipa on the edge of. So it was easy. We'd fly into LA and get a Uber, 2.5 hours by Uber, mind you,
Uber.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
out to our race shop, and we'd have I had
Have
a
all
car
gear
there. I virtually rock up with my briefcase. I had all my clothes
Close
there.
there.
I had all our tools, our race trailer. We had an F450 truck. Everything was there. We'd
Ready
go
to go.
racing. We'd take it back there. The guy would prep it for the next one, and Dan and
Uber,
I'd fly
back
home.
to the-
yeah,
yeah.
Uber, and back home
I
again.
was going to say, what do you reckon the odds are of that guy getting a return fare home when he dropped off in the air, but he's hanging around till he's ready to leave?
Some
Couple of
used to cancel. We used to freak a bit. Like some
Yeah.
used to realise where Yucaipa was and go,
No.
cancel.
Yeah.
Next one, cancel. So
You
yeah.
just need a can-do attitude.
And then we met Chris, and then we moved to Beaumont, and then that's when we did the Mint, and then Mine Expo was on,
Yeah.
and then that's when COVID started.
COVID back then.
So we went, righto, we'll see you in a month or so, and 4 years later,
You get back. Yeah.
we went back to America.
Yeah.
So I've only done 4 races in America since COVID. We had to sell everything.
Yeah.
Chris had to sell his shop. He moved to Texas, so we had to sell their 450. He put all my other stuff in a shipping container, and we brought it back to here. Sold the race car. Actually, we brought the race car back to here, but it never suited the racing here.
Couldn't suit.
Didn't
Yep.
suit. So we gave it a miss.
Yep.
And then that's when we started racing here. I actually started racing here, and actually no one knew who I was because I've spent all
More
my
time
time
over
racing
there.
in America.
Yeah.
Because it was full on. We were doing 7 and 8 races over there. I'd
Yeah.
no sooner get home,
Wow.
go out to work, and then back home and on the plane again back to America. So we were doing nearly 1 race a month in
Yeah,
the
right.
States. So a lot of traveling. I had a lot of dramas with health. I was full of adrenaline. Couldn't sleep, not eating right. The flying all the time was not good.
Yeah.
I was doing infrared saunas and all this sort of shit. Wasn't very healthy. Having a good old time in Vegas type thing.
Yeah.
So
Travel. Yeah.
because we would virtually fly in
Plain food.
Race.
Yep.
Yeah.
and be back on that plane
Yep.
Sunday or Monday night back home and back to work. And the biggest thing for me was when I got home, I couldn't tell anyone what we did
Yeah.
because no one knew what we were doing.
What you're actually. Yeah.
No one could experience it. And Dan and I actually felt a bit lonely and sort of, you couldn't relate to anyone. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't talk to anyone.
It's
Uh,
surreal.
And people in the mines weren't real keen. I think a few of them were jealous of what we were doing and stuff like that. So copped a fair bit of backlash
Yeah.
what we were doing. So
Man, you guys would have been burnt out. Like
I
it's just-
was.
Yeah.
I was burnt out. I'd never seen summer
Mm.
because I was racing here in winter and then I was racing over there in winter. The first summer after COVID, I struggled
Yeah. Okay.
with the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wow, what
You're
the
just
hell's
so
this?
Yeah,
acclimatised to
Because
humidity.
I lived 12 months of the year in a hoodie
yeah.
and jeans on. Because I'd come out of their climate straight into our winter,
Yeah.
race here during winter, and then I'd go back.
Yeah.
Because it's not a summer sport, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
You'd feel very alienated from reality in a sense, like
I
what
did.
your original reality was.
I got too far. I got too obsessed with racing. When I was racing here and in America, I was doing like 15 races a year. And then we started breaking. We had such a good year in 2018. 2019 was a complete flop. We were on a roll. Like we had speed. We turned up at our first meet. And I started 136th on the grid. And within no time, I was third outright.
Wow.
Like we were on the pace and we were heading for big things, but we just broke every race.
Something
We broke
went.
stupid shit.
Yep.
A circlip loose or a hose clamp or something. But then we were learning speed, so then we were breaking the car and then we were getting them to build the car stronger, but then that just transferred
Somewhere else.
and then that'd break. And, we did so much test and development on the cars, it just got to a point where I think we went to the whole year and we won one race and that was about it.
Did you ever have a point where you're like, look, I've got into this for fun. This is getting pretty serious now. We're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. We questioned, where does the fun end? And we're taking this pretty bloody seriously now.
I did. I got that point when we went to Baja. We'd actually finished fourth the year before.
Yeah.
And we'd been battling with second and third. We had a few little issues, but for a little known team out of Australia to finish fourth,
Yep.
Yeah.
amongst 100-odd cars in our class, we actually even got mentioned that, usually it's first, second and third. We
Yep.
got mentioned in magazines and on web pages that these Aussie boys got fourth. So that's when we come back the next year and, then we started breaking and we got a new car built, everything we designed, $160,000 golf cart more or less, as we
wow.
call them.
Yeah.
State of the art, latest and greatest. And off we go down to Baja again and we were favourites, one of the favourites to win. Complete flop. Just absolute disaster. The car, Dan straight away got into like second outright, catching the lead, and then the car just started falling apart.
Yep.
To the point where when Pete car, my friend, got in it, it had no brakes, wouldn't steer, no power. And I'd spent $55,000 to get down there and get set up, and I didn't even drive the car.
Yeah.
I was sitting over in La Paz, San Felipe on the other side in a motel watching all this unfold, and all we had was the phone. So back home I went to Dan, that's it, I've had enough.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you go home and you have a sleep about it and then you go
Nah, it's all right.
Get back on
She's
the
all
horse.
right.
Is it like, I'm trying to picture myself in this scenario, throwing my phone out the window, the highs, the lows. Is it more of are you filled with rage? Are you just feeling defeated, like when this sort of shit goes south?
Yeah,
in-
I did
in
after
racing?
that.
Yeah.
I was going through, we hire a Airbnb house north of Ensenada, and I got back to there and that was it for me. I was throwing shit around and I wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Don't come near me.
Yeah.
Like not only the money waste, the level that we were racing with and the expertise. And once again, it's a reflection of my business, what you learn from business.
Shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Shouldn't happen, man.
Yeah.
You've ticked every box.
Yeah.
And the thing was falling around down our ears and was just a complete disaster.
Yeah.
And once again, we came home without a place, a win, a story. All it was a bad story. And I came home and I'm like, no, that's it. I've had enough. But, it takes a week to sort of cool down. And like anyone in racing, everyone goes through this shit.
Yeah.
Man, I've had engines blow up in dump trucks, and I reckon I had more hatred in racing.
Yeah.
Blowing $1 million dump truck engine. Oh yeah, go and get another
Go
one.
and get another one.
Yeah.
You don't finish a race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I was devoed.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
because it's me.
Is this the difference where you've taken that attitude to the think, we're just going to have some fun?
We
We
did.
come back to that.
We did, and I'm probably glad that we were all relaxed and we're all sitting around the pits and we're
Yep.
having a chuckle. And it was very funny about Finke because the first night we had 44 millimetres of rain. You know, that out in the desert's not heard of. You know, the track was a swamp. It caved all our tents in. You know, we'd had a fair night on the booze because we get into Finke and where everyone's the adrenaline's flowing and we're seeing everyone at the pub. And
it'd be weird, like everyone's in the same boat going, fuck, look what we're about
we
to go
sat in
into.
the pub the next day all day and had a big drink session.
Yeah.
Caught up with everyone, got out of our system.
Yeah.
Now, right, now let's get on with it.
Yeah.
So we did all the mate thing.
Yeah.
And caught up with everyone. But, yeah, it's pretty weird to get out there. And then we seen the Todd River flow.
Oh, that never flows. Yep.
That's once in a blue moon, so got to see that flow. So, ticked another box. Went to the truck museum.
Yep.
Always wanted to do that out there. So, because we got a schedule. We try and stick to it. So, yeah, got to see a few different things when that goes on.
Yeah.
But I went through a period in the business that I was disheartened from wrecking equipment and people wrecking machines, and I had to get my emotions under control because I was saying things that I shouldn't be to people. And I'm glad a friend of mine pulled me up. So then I changed my attitude and I'd go home, I'd go to sleep, and the next day I wake up, it's a new day. If you carry a grudge from the day before, you're going to carry that all that day. So your production's going to go down the whole shooting match. So I had to change it.
That mental thing.
I still have barmies with people. You just got to try and get on with it type
I don't
thing.
want to be on the wrong side of you, mate. Sitting here, I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty good. But, yeah, look, it's a full-on life that I lead, between racing, running a mining business. I'm learning to play guitar as well at the moment.
Nice.
That's another one of my adventures. So my life's pretty well full. So, family and all that sort of stuff. So it keeps me on the hop.
Teach you learning tab.
I'm just doing tabs at home.
Man, that's all you
I
need,
don't
mate.
annoy anyone, So it was something I've always wanted to do. I've always been involved in music. I was a DJ for 3 years.
Yeah.
Frosty, you've got something in common, eh?
Yeah, we're going to talk music after this.
I went into a nightclub mouthing off how bad the music was and got told, can you do better? And 3 years later, I stepped out of there.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I got involved with bands doing lighting and mixing.
Yeah, cool.
So I did that. So I've had about 3 attempts at playing guitar, and I think I've left it too late. My old arthritic body and my muscle memory is just not quite there. So it takes me about 2 hours to warm up. So don't come near me in the first 2 hours. After that, I don't sound too bad. Well, by
Warmed
my
up.
ears. I send little videos to people at 2 a.m. when I'm practicing. So you shit, man. Give it away. Stick to what
It's
you're
just
doing.
repetition.
I'm just having fun.
Cool.
And as long as I'm not annoying anyone, that's what I like.
Well, mate, we've hit a record. You told us you'd done a podcast before this. You guys hit 4 hours in America. I said I wasn't sure how long our hard drives will keep filming in 4K here at that rate. But look, I could sit here and talk all day, but we probably should start to wrap it up a bit.
Yes, yeah.
Mate, look, awesome story.
Very good, hey?
Very good.
What you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we've done exceptionally well.
Yeah.
But it's a team thing. It's not all about me and
Comes
Brendan.
back to that.
I got some awesome people in our business. I'm lucky I've met some key people, friends, come in and help me at times. It's always good to call back on my mum and dad for a bit of support for what he's done in his life, and meeting people like these guys in DGI and other companies I deal with. You always call on them for a favour or if you get stuck. It's a very big industry, but it's small. And there's a lot of friends, and that's what I'll always take away from it. I've learnt something. I'm very passionate about what I do. I very much get involved what I do. I'm very lucky that I've chosen this career in my life, and I'll always look back on it for sure. But I'm hoping I can do another 3 years and then hopefully maybe hang my boots up and go and enjoy
put my
life.
money on 6.
Yeah,
I'm 6.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Look, I'll be 63, which is not too bad.
We'll meet in the middle.
People said, you'll go full-time racing. I couldn't afford to go full-time racing.
Yeah.
I would need to start another business
That's right. To fund it.
to support it.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. Maybe I can go back doing something simpler. But
Stick with
wouldn't happen.
guitar. If you
Racing
get
car.
the Sunday Arvo gigs at your local pub, you only got to roll up with your bloody guitar case, and that's pretty cheap. Effective.
This is the same thing. That it's not a cheap thing either, mate. I've got into the bandwagon and watching YouTube, and there's $900,000 guitars and all that sort of stuff, and
Holy.
it's like, wow, here we go.
I play
Don't get involved, please.
Yeah.
I played guitar my whole life, and I back when I was obsessed with it to now, like I rarely pick it up, but I got really obsessed with gear and like anything. Like now, I'll every now and then go and romanticize the thought of getting right back into it, and just the technology evolving in that space. I love pedals and playing with the tech side of electrics
I'm
as
a
well.
pedal man.
And it just grows. Like every time I look, I go, I didn't know I needed this. And now with everyone using MIDI interfaces into their computer, there's a lot going on. But you know what? You can still just go and pick up a piece of shit nylon string acoustic and still have fun.
Yes. Yeah, I have a whole bedroom at home with all my gear in it.
Yeah, right.
That's how obsessed I've become with it. Like collecting cat models, now I'm collecting guitars.
And
There's nothing wrong with
Which
that.
is like, wow, why do you pick these hobbies? Why do you pick expensive motor racing hobbies? Can't you just go and play stamps or collect butterflies or something?
Well, there's some expensive stamps as well out there.
Yeah, I know. So anyway.
remote control dozers. And
Yes,
those type of
yes,
things.
I've just bought a 138 kilo D575 dozer, which I'm looking forward to seeing. So
Yeah, right.
Have you ever heard one of these? They're unreal.
No, they're the little.
no, they're not little.
Remote.
Oh, I've seen them actually.
This thing is probably big as this table.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, right.
I'm looking forward to when it turns up. So if you want a pool dug in your backyard, I'll come around and do it for you.
Yeah.
Well, I need a retaining wall done, so I don't know what to do.
So no, technology's come a long way. So we'll see what it's like.
We
It's
wrap
a
it.
training asset for our business.
Well, that's exactly right.
100%. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mechanical and operator.
Yes.
You guys have forked off some R&D budget now to keep growing that side of the
Yeah,
business.
my R&D budget.
Yeah.
I paid for it. So yes, I'm hoping it's going to be good.
We wrap it up with 5 quick ones, 5 random questions from Woodsy and I. This is why I wouldn't let you see my notes before.
Oh, okay. Yep.
My question from the beginning is, what's the fastest you've travelled in a vehicle that you've been behind the wheel of?
I probably should say on a freeway, 285 kilometres an hour.
Off-road?
Off-road, 145 mile an hour.
What
In the
converts to...
It's about 240,
Holy
250
shit.
in
That'd
the
feel
dirt.
a lot faster than the freeway, I'd imagine.
Yeah, because I owned at one point there, I owned a Corvette Z06.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Very low to the ground. I took it out to Willowbank once. So, yeah, I got up to 185 or something or whatever was in that. But, yeah, it was a lot more in that.
Yeah.
Sorry, 285 I got up to. But, yeah, that's doing 145 mile an hour in the
On
dirt,
the dirt.
Yeah.
is freaky.
It'd be light.
Yeah, you get very light.
Hey?
And wind.
Yep.
Those big trucks, the wind gets
Oh,
under the
yeah.
bonnet.
Especially out in
And
the
Yeah,
desert.
right.
The nose starts picking up. So the steering gets very light. Your head starts getting just pushed back in the seat. Yeah, very much an experience.
Yeah. Wow.
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah. For a guy, I hope you don't mind me saying you have a very relaxed demeanour. Everything you do is very adrenaline-centred.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
Bit of juxtaposition.
Mm.
Woods.
What's your favourite machine? If it's a bike, car, dozer, excavator,
D10.
D10, Cat D10.
Yeah. The new D10T Series 2.
Yep, Rabs.
I was lucky enough to have one at the farm. We'd had a bit of an issue with it. I built a dam in 2 days. I cleared all my fence lines. I fixed up all the jumps on my track.
They're the go-to now. Yeah.
That if I could retire and have a brand new D10T sitting at my farm, that's what I'd have.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. But very impressive machine.
yep.
You're mates with Tim Boyd, and he's your sales representative here at DGI Trading.
Yes,
How much does he bench press?
I know he's a pretty muscly dude.
He is a muscly guy.
And
First gym
with
I ever
his-
went to was with Tim in
Yeah,
Tasmania.
With his background, and it's good that he's into his fishing. And last night we had a bit of talk about his motorbikes and all that stuff. But yeah, I've always had a good connection with Timmy, and we've always had a laugh. And he was one of the first people to congratulate me at Finke. You know, he's down there, had a grin from ear to ear, and so yeah, he's been a big part of my life. He's Mr. Boyd, as well as these other lads. You know, so he's our sales representative for us, more or less, and. Quick phone call to Timmy and he'll get shit sorted out pretty quickly for us. It'll be a yes or no.
I think he benches about 150.
Yeah,
He
mate.
does.
Yeah, I've been in the gym with Tim, and
He doesn't mind a beer.
Yeah,
No.
he'll have a beer.
He
Yeah.
gets the
Doesn't mind a
balance
beer.
right.
He's very much balanced. And once again, with our industry, I think we're all very social people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yes.
What's your go-to? After work, is it no cars? What's something that Brett chills to?
I don't know how to chill.
Yeah.
I don't like going on holidays. I can't sit on the beach. I was pretty mad keen fisherman up in Yeppoon.
Yeah.
I had a 30-foot Kevlar cat. I was pretty, once again, obsession kicks in. 600 fishing rods. Why do you need that many?
Yeah.
Why do you need 30,000 hooks of different colours?
Yep.
I don't know, man. I can't even watch a movie these days.
Well, that was my next question. You know, just whack Netflix on or something?
Yeah, I've become very much a YouTube fan
Yeah.
because
How good is it?
I follow Dale Earnhardt Jr. with his podcasts.
Yep.
A lot of guitar information.
Yeah.
And a lot of off-road videos and stuff. So probably for me to chill,
Yep.
sit on the couch, have a drink, and watch YouTube.
Watch YouTube.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
I've become obsessed with YouTube
Yeah.
for sure.
And you subscribe to Dirt Knoll, of course, don't you? Sweet.
Yes, I've actually got a few more subscribers for you since I told them I was coming on.
Oh,
here.
beautiful. Well, that's
Yeah.
what we love.
Yep.
The last question, mate, we wrap it up with, if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
Oh, look, I've done some heaps of stupid stuff in my time, mate. That would probably be another episode to do that. Look, I think what it is, and I need to tell everyone out there, you need to follow your dreams and your passion. I see too many people in this industry do it for the wrong reasons. If you want to just do it for money and go home, that's fine with me.
Yep.
But I see people that have got genuine passion in their eyes, you see they go way further. And my biggest thing is jumping the fence. You got to hop the fence to experience it. And I had so many people that I work with, I encourage them to go and start their own business. And then once they get over there, you see the glow in their face. So that's probably the biggest thing is passion.
Yep.
If you have passion, man,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter whether you're in a lull, you've been kicked 20 times. Like I've been through like some of the worst things in mining with the downturns we've had.
Oh, yeah.
And here I am sitting with you guys.
Yeah.
You know?
And that builds strength, character, and it comes from passion.
Yep.
How do you adjust to that? You know, how do you adjust to floods when our machines went underwater?
Well, yeah. Massive change.
Fires, you name it.
Yep.
It's how you adjust and how you get on with it.
Yep.
And then put it behind you and get into it.
Get onto it. Yeah.
Mm.
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Virtually the same thing, man.
Yeah.
But I'd say the biggest thing I'd tell anyone is if I went back to 18 is I would still do things with passion.
Yep.
And whether it's I race motocross, I've got into my off-road racing, I've got into my guitars. If you're passionate about something, you will succeed. There's no two ways about it.
I reckon aviation's next. It's the next logical step.
No,
and drums.
No. No, I've never I love planes. I was obsessed with army tanks.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
right.
found out Peter Champion had an army tank on his property. So, yeah, that's cool. Because dozers, I'm a dozer operator. So,
Yeah.
Do you
buy
watch
an army
Whistling?
Same
tank.
sort of thing. Yeah.
Do you watch
army
Whistling
tanks.
Diesel on YouTube? Yeah, he's got the tank out there.
Yes. So, I don't know. You'll probably see me with an army tank at one point, maybe later on in life.
I think Clint's got one down there at Expressways.
One of those Abrams tanks would be pretty trick. 70 mile an hour in a tank,
It's-
blowing
yeah.
holes in things. That'd be cool.
If you get a tank, we'll come out and film and have a look. I'd love
Righto.
to see it.
That'll be the go.
Righto. Look, man, it's awesome chat, awesome story.
No,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you very
It's-
much for coming down.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad I came down. I've had heaps of fun, man. These are the go.
Yeah,
Telling
man.
your story.
Yeah. It's unreal. Yeah.
Again, like I feel like we're only just warming up.
I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'll write a book. I don't think
yeah.
I'm that exciting, but yeah, doing the podcast has been really good.
Yeah, it's good.
awesome.
Yeah,
Everyone wants to
and
hear.
I appreciate you doing it for me.
I
Awesome.
appreciate you coming down, man. Thank you.
Yep, thank
Alright.
you.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Brad.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Benny.